Hello there, everybody, and welcome to the Raw preview. Never done one of these before. Is it just the Raw preview?
The Raw preview.
The Raw preview with myself, Adam Cleary, Michael Cedric, and Andy Murray. But before we get into it and discuss all the big burning issues, I just remembered this is on camera. Don't forget to subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. The daily wrestling podcast where we not only review Raw and SmackDown, but also pay-per-views, interviews, roundtable discussions, and around it. But we complete the video, of course, on Wrestle Culture. But as I say, I am joined by Michael Cedric and Andy Murray to preview Raw. Thank you for that, Adam Wilborn. Now, as we've already ascertained, they haven't done an official preview yet on WWE.com, so expectations are high? Low. Well,
there'll be one awesome thing.
What do you think that'll be?
What do you think? The Fiend.
Well, I've actually got that. Do you think he'll be on? But we'll get to that. Of course, the biggest talking point, the really interesting thing, it's going to be really fun to get into, is that Luke Harper's back, but he's on SmackDown, so we're going to have to ignore that entirely. Would you like to read WWE's description for the match that Seth Rollins was in last night?
Yeah.
Seth Rollins once again overcame all the odds.
Oh, there we go. One buzzword.
Scored an impressive win over Braun Strowman. The Beast Slayer had to dig deep and even adopted the pedigree to get an advantage over the monster among men.
That's 4 cliches in 2 sentences.
So they're putting over Triple H's finisher in the copy of the Raw preview.
Was it you or Hamflet that did the whole congratulations on Triple H for finally going over Braun Strowman a year after he set up the initial match? Before we get on to Rollins, where does Strowman go from here? Have you got to take him out of the title picture entirely?
I would say so. He was defeated comprehensively. It was a match that, for me, it aimed to strengthen both, but weakened both. It felt like the sausage being made right in front of my eyes. The crowd could not care less. Seth Rollins got booed. Braun Strowman, I think people, if they hadn't given up on him before, they've most certainly given up on him after this. He's been Samoa Joe'd.
And have you given up on him?
No, because I said so in the Talking Heads video a few months ago. I will never give up on Braun Strowman, but that's because I've just kind of accepted that Braun Strowman is the guy they heat up when they want an easy or an effective title defense for Guy X. Seth Rollins is the latest example. It's been Brock in the past. I just think he's a guy they don't see as world champion material, even though I disagree completely. Would
you have him on the broadcast tonight, or would you just take him out of the picture for a little bit?
I think he's got to kill something tonight. He just took a big loss again. Like, the guy needs to do one of his big explosive stupid things, not like pick up a car and throw it at Drake Maverick or something. Like,
bus.
Put someone through the goddamn LED wall. Something. He needs to do something cool.
I tell you what, you might be onto something there, flippantly as though you approached it. I don't like the 24/7 stuff. It's not my kind of humour. And I think Raw has improved exponentially by having that being put in the back burner in place of the King of the Ring. But Braun Strowman is 24/7 champion in a storyline in which literally all the geeks are far too afraid to go near him. There could be something in that.
Yeah.
Well, genuinely, it kind of got to a head, like literally on Clash of Champions, because now everybody just runs around chasing everybody in a big group all the time. It's turned into literally that bit with the Anthill mob from Wacky Races. Having Braun with it now, that would fix that a bit, wouldn't it? Having go completely the opposite direction.
Yeah.
People are now trying to like sneak up on him or trying to tie him down or something.
I like the idea of these little idiots throwing themselves at him every week and just bouncing off.
And him like killing 5 of them at once.
yeah. Drake Maverick gets darted across the arena. Book it, Vince.
No, that's really good, actually. That's what I would like to see Braun Strowman do next.
As a visual, what I would like to see is Strowman knocked out cold. Somebody gets on top of him, but then at the 2 count, somebody just gets on top of him. So the ref keeps recounting and recounting as the pylon builds and builds and builds and builds till you've got 20 people on his back, and finally the person on the top gets it. I'd love to see that. The other equation in all of this, in Seth Rollins' life at the minute, is the Fiend. Now, would you have him on the broadcast tonight, or would you keep him away from the picture to build spooky intrigue?
For me, I would keep him away and maybe do some kind of production trick to intimate that his presence is there, even if the performer, the person, is not.
Yeah.
But I just think when they look at last week's rating, the fact that Stone Cold Steve Austin didn't draw much of the audience in comparison to Monday Night Football, according to my sources, Dave Meltzer, the NFL game on Monday night isn't the sort of barn burner that you'd expect to annihilate Raw on the ratings, but it's kind of doing a good enough job of annihilating itself. So I think they will have The Fiend on the show because they feel like they have to have him on.
Yeah.
Creatively, do you think that hurts it as a character?
Yeah, I think that will happen to the character and the storyline's detriment, because The story that came out a few months ago was really refreshing when Ryan Satin broke that WWE were not going to use him every show and he was only going to show up every now and then. And
Did he cry on the locker room floor, Bray Wyatt, when he realised he wasn't going to get booked?
I wish he had. But I've completely lost my train of thought. You little scamps. Will it harm the character or will it harm the situation? Yeah, I think it will, because WWE have this tendency when they bring in too much spooky bollocks to completely overdo it and completely oversell the supernatural aspect of the character. And as we've spoken about candidly between the three of us or in various conversations that I can't remember, Seth Rollins' acting is not very good.
That's the big worry about this, because if you keep let's say for a creative decision, you want to have the Fiend used as little as possible, at least consistent with how he's been since he's been brought back. But then, in order to build up to this title match, you have to basically have Seth Rollins do all the heavy lifting on the mic, in promos, everything like that. And he has not exactly had a great track record with all of this in the last couple of weeks.
No, my concern is that whichever direction he takes or whichever direction he's directed to take, oh God, both are going to be disastrous. He could either... Can you remember his Brock Lesnar promo?
Which one?
Oh, God, yeah.
That one. So you could either try and play like the zingy sitcom
Cool,
guy
yeah.
and banter off the really quite formidable threat that Wyatt has projected so far, and Morgan make it cartoonish and basically do a Cena impression, or is melodramatic Seth worse?
I've got the line. He's going to say, Bray Wyatt, just like Randy Orton did to your sister's house, I'm going to burn you down. Character.
And straight away, I'm back into it as a feud. I love that.
But
done. It's over.
to be less facetious about it, there's two recent Seth Rollins promos that are like burned into my memory. One is a Cena impression that he did to Brock Lesnar, which was awful, and the other one is when he just got annihilated with a steel chair and did the whole,
Oh, yeah.
this is all I've got. I don't know if I can come back, but I think I'm going to try it on Sunday. So if he tries to do this, either way, he's an absolutely fire pro wrestler on his day, Seth Rollins is, but he's not a TV star. He's not a guy who can drive storylines. I'm kind of worried, but that was one of the few highlights of Clash of Champions for me, was the Wyatt angle. Yep. So hopefully, let's not just be a dickhead about this, Cedric. Hopefully that angle can get adapted onto television effectively.
Andy, you hopeful? In a word.
No.
Moving on, this is another great line from WWE.com you'll all enjoy. The war between Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks is far from over.
They're never over.
Both the superstars put on a show last night, but the man was disqualified for hitting the referee with a steel chair.
8 minutes later.
The action would then spill outside the ring as Lynch and Banks would brawl all over the arena. And I've just written my little notes, $10,000 fine. Now, we're all totally sure this is a kayfabe fine, right? You've not actually been fined for hitting the official with a chair. We're all sure about this?
Yes.
How on earth do they keep this ticking over until Hell in a Cell?
Well, this is the thing. When every single major program is like mandated to go over at least 2 pay-per-views, in terms of the angles, it can only ever manifest as diminishing returns. I mean, look at the beating she put on her last night. Mm-hmm. How can you beat that? You know, how can you top her getting plastered with mustard, smashed in the face and spine and neck? And yeah, it was a fire match. I really, really enjoyed it. But they can't do a physical angle on the back of this because it'll just represent a diminishing return. So they'll have to cut some kind of promo, maybe a tense sit-down interview. That AEW have played like really good effect on these intimate Road 2 series. I would prefer for them to scale it all the way back, like put a renewed emotional connection on top of everything rather than just some kind of comes to blows scenario.
There's plenty there to go with an emotional connection. The two women's history is like extraordinary. Hamlet even had in the attires article that Becky Lynch was clearly channeling the gear she was wearing from that WrestleMania match, where she was kind of the forgotten element in this allegedly historic night. So there's loads it can go down with that route, but it's also Hell in a Cell coming up, and it's going to have to be a physical thing, and only this unforgiving steel structure can possibly contain this feud. Don't want to get too bogged down in like the results from Clash of Champions, but has it hurt Sasha to have not won that belt? Would it not make more sense to keep this going if she'd won?
I think she should have won, but certainly in their eyes, they'll be like, well, if you must continue, we kept it going because it was inconclusive in the end. I certainly came out of that pay-per-view feeling less like excited about Sasha Banks as a leading heel in the women's division. The match was really good. It was really enjoyable, but it's impossible not to be cynical about these non-finishes in WWE because it's so transparent what they do. They very rarely, if ever, go for the straight, clean, conclusive finish in the first match and then build from there, which is something that other promotions would do. New Japan, the way they handle rematches certainly isn't perfect, especially in 2019. But the concept of using a clean win to set up a rematch later down the line is far more compelling to me.
What direction would you like to see them go with it?
I don't know.
I wouldn't...
Because, I mean, just looking at it on the face of it, I think they've kind of booked themselves into a corner with this, but they were always going to, regardless of the result, because either you've got to cobble together a rematch in an era where they're supposed to be not doing rematches if Banks wins, or you just have to, again, do an unconclusive finish and draw it out, which, as you say, gives you diminishing returns.
Well, Sasha Banks has got a logical storyline motive to request a rematch, and realistically, if it's fair, it's fair. I mean, Shane's the only authority figure. Let's just forget about that. It's an inconvenient plot hole. If fair is fair, and they'll pretend it's fair for that segment alone, they will set up a rematch. I don't know how they're going to announce it or whatever, but it's one of those things where it was kind of inadvertently effective, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I'm not going to buy into whatever story they tell at face value, but because it was such a great first chapter of a rivalry in the ring, I will be excited knowing that the Hell in a Cell blow-off will be really good. They've already done the work. They've already done the work with the stipulation, the fact that the first chapter was so good. It's one of those where, can you remember how bad the build-up realistically was to the Triple Threat at Mania? If that show wasn't 7.5 hours long, you still would have got the heat for the main event. Like, what I'm trying to get at in a roundabout way is that really the stories that they tell on telly are kind of incidental. And these two stars are over. They revealed why they were over in a fire match. It'll be 3 weeks of whatever.
Well, you say 3 weeks or whatever. How long can you see them going with this angle? Because at the minute, there's not exactly a queue a mile long of people on Raw that you want to see either Becky or Sasha move on to. Do you think we're going to get this probably for like the rest of the year on it?
Oh, no.
Oh, goodness. Well, did we speak about this in the news video or something earlier where, chairs have been a prominent theme in this feud as a weapon of choice, and hey, let's drag it all the way to TLC. We could have a chairs match, which would be hell.
I don't know what I hate more, the voice or the idea.
This is my WWE Booker's voice.
I'm written for every show on the network except anything to do with wrestling.
I think that this feud in its current state screams Hell in a Cell gimmick match blow-off, fortunately.
Well, fingers crossed on that. Speaking of blow-offs, finally, somehow, it's the end of King of the Ring tonight and not last night, as it clearly should have been. And WWE, after all that, Seth Rollins overcame all the odds. Becky Lynch for Sasha Banks is far from over. Tonight's episode of Raw will see a new King of the Ring crowned. Full stop. That was it. As Baron Corbin takes on Chad Gable. Sorry, I phrased that. As they lock horns for the coveted prize.
Big Bad Baron versus Wee Chad.
Well, I've got in here who will win, but
Chad versus the Chad.
Chad versus the Chad. Chad versus the Chode. Can you see any way in hell Baron Corbin doesn't win this?
Yeah. No. There's no way in hell he's not going to win it, but, and this is all my cynicism is getting parked to one side. Chad Gable is so goddamn good that throughout that entire match, he will have you convinced otherwise because he's absolutely great. I'm really looking forward to this match. I think they've done a disservice to it by relegating it to Raw.
Yeah.
I think last night's card really would have benefited it because the shine's been taken off the King of the Ring with the Shane McMahon Sports Entertainment bollocks, but we're really building something good, and I'm hoping that as soon as they do the pomp and circumstance of the production, of the chair, of the entrances and the introductions, everything will be forgotten, and within 15 minutes, ideally, you could make 2 stars out of this.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any chance this main event's tonight?
Yes, I think there's a good chance. It's Baron Corbin. They flew him in, 3 pay-per-view main events this year? They think the guy, for some reason, is a draw, despite all the ridiculous, quantifiable evidence to the contrary last year when Raw was built largely around him as this authority figure, constable thing, and he set 2 record low ratings ever. I think Chad Gable can win this because I think that they think telling us that this guy's short and tiny and therefore no good and him somehow overcoming the odds, they think that's good storytelling and they think that's a compelling underdog story rather than my view on it is that it's just telling you that King of the Ring's worthless because it's been won by this guy they spent a month telling you is a little child. But Chad Gable's brilliant. Baron Corbin is maybe the most improved wrestler in the world over the past few months.
Yeah, his work's been incredible.
Unreal.
Well, not incredible, but really, really good.
Compared to where he was.
Oh, yeah,
it's
absolutely.
incredible.
It's funny,
really hyped for this.
Not doing chin locks and rest holds and instead smashing guys' faces against ring posts is like way better.
Randy Orton.
Crazy. I don't know how you came up with that one, but they should really the check should be in the post for that.
Yeah.
It's almost like wrestling has really evolved since 1977.
Yes.
Strange.
I would say
Almost.
so.
Let's not go wild with that. Who can best take the defeat for this? Because Gable's obviously been elevated way above where we thought he would be. Certainly in Raw. I mean, we're talking about main eventing Raw potentially tonight. So he's come way, 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 way beyond where he's supposed to be. So you could argue that if he gets the loss, well, he's come a long way anyway. Whereas if Corbin eats it, he was kind of in that position on the card. But at the same time, given that they've constantly talked down about Gable, he's short. Haha, look at the little man. If he loses, that him back where he was? Is that him back on 205?
Yep.
Possibly. I mean, they can't really ever come up with any kind of contingency plans or anything like this, but he can absorb a loss.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, I love Chad Gable. I think he's absolutely great. I think he's got a kind of a subdued but no less palpable sense of charisma and likability. He's never going to get the top spot in WWE.
No.
If they could book him consistently, they've got the main roster's version of Ty Dillinger waiting for them, and he can absorb losses because he's really good at making proper big heels look good. So I'd like to see him lose in a way, because if he can lose well enough to a point that Baron Corbin gets over, they could potentially look at him as how they looked at the 1-2-3 Kid in the 1990s. A guy who's not got the size to be a star, but is the litmus test. Like, if you can't get a really good match out of Gable, then you're worthless.
Then you're useless. Yeah.
Do you think, slightly moving on here, do you think we can already call this tournament a huge success, or does it kind of hinge on tonight?
Oh, it definitely hinges on tonight. I was already like really high on it, but they've diminished it in importance.
A lot of it hinges on tonight. For me, like, the match quality's been very high. There've been lots of really great clashes from the very first round. It's been tremendous from that standpoint. The big disappointment for me with this tournament, and I'm really foolish for expecting it, is I thought it would have been really cool if they used the whole tournament to set off all kinds of little storylines for people who got knocked out and set them off in new directions as they come out of the tournament and press forward. But really, unfortunately, it looks like the only thing we're really getting out of this is what happens next with Chad and Baron. And that, to me, is a bit of a disappointment, but I can't complain about the in-ring. And like Cedric says, it's taken some of the goofier stuff away from Raw and SmackDown recently.
Speaking of goofy stuff,
Hey.
Dolph Ziggler still a thing, and now one half of the new tag team champions. It feels like every single time they put the belt on somebody else, you kind of trick yourself into thinking, oh, maybe they are going to do some tag team wrestling. Maybe this is the champions they need to start building a division around it. And every time it never actually is. Is this the time?
Nah, it's a bollocks.
But a singles... Oh, I know. But,
Apparently it's a vehicle, according to Dave Meltzer, it's a vehicle with which to get Robert Roode over because he's really high on him. And this is the best context for Roode. Ziggler's best context has not been in pro wrestling anymore because he's been on the screens for too long in this super saturated era of content as well. I'm not just being disrespectful. It's like no one, like Ziggler's really talented, but no one really thrives in this like sort of constant episodic model. Look at Randy Orton's reaction on Sunday, for God's sake. They're not going to save tag team wrestling. Moving on.
do you think?
No, I totally agree. I don't have, like, coming out of the pay-per-view, it was kind of weird. A lot of people really had a major problem with them winning the belts, which I thought was kind of an odd reaction because surely the moment that match was booked and the moment Braun versus Seth was announced for the same night, surely you saw that coming. But there's been a lot of like aghast people like, oh my God, they were only thrown together a few weeks ago. It's
there's a lot of accusations of queue jumping here, but there wasn't a queue because they weren't doing any notable tag team wrestling. It's not like there's been this. You got to like hold up like 4 or 5 different tag teams who've had great match after great match after great match and have elevated these belts, and then they put these two together out of nowhere and put it on them. There was nothing really happening in that regard. Like everybody, we're going to change it. We're going to bring some prestige and some shine back to this. And you've literally got other wrestlers on Twitter being like, "Lol, good luck."
Yeah,
like
nice.
there's not really a cue to jump in this regard. But do you think, given that we did hear that this was a big Heyman plan and he wanted to give Rude something to do, does that maybe suggest that they're going to give them something to do? We're going to get some good matches out of this.
You got years and years and years of evidence to the contrary. I'd love to have that enthusiasm, but no.
One thing I will say, if I was, and my heart's not in this take, but I'll say it regardless, is like, years of evidence dispels any kind of enthusiasm you could possibly have for a consistently booked and high-profile tag team division. However, as much as I have soured on Dolph Ziggler this year, I would very much like to see him get the piss beaten out of him by the Viking Raiders.
I'd be here for that.
He would look great, or more to the point, he would make... Who's the big lad again? I've forgotten the name changes. Is Ivar the former Hansen?
That's Derek, I think.
Derek.
Eric, I can't even remember.
I think we're doing a bit there.
The absolute monster lad. I'm
big
pretty
one.
sure it's Ivar. He is going to look great mauling Dolph Ziggler. So that surely has got to be the program. Logic dictates it's got to be the program because they've been, at the very least, somewhat protected of late.
Yeah.
One last thing I want to get onto. I was a bit surprised that Cedric Alexander Styles was given such little time and on the pre-show, no less. When this appears to have been a really good program, it's done great work for Alexander. We saw Ricochet had some great matches with Styles as well. I thought maybe this would lead to more and they do more with it, but is that the end of this now?
Looks like it, doesn't it? Decisive for 4.5 minutes, was it, on the pre-show? It's exciting for what we got, but it's difficult with guys like Cedric who can't really talk that well and can't really express character and like wonderful professional wrestler. What was the word you used earlier to describe him, Michael? Propulsive.
Propulsive. He did this bloody spot in that kickoff match where he did a handspring into the ropes, and I felt like it glitched and fast forwarded because he hit AJ Styles in the temple so flush and so quickly. And so my mouth was agape. He's one of those guys who can just make moves that everybody else does look better than anybody else does them. But as you said, as a character, in that context of sports entertainment, there's a ceiling over his head. So I can't, if anyone thinks I've got credibility, thank you. If anybody does, I can't sacrifice it to those pocket full of people who think, he knows what he's talking about. I can't say, it's the next step of his career. It's not like a performative thing that I'm going to get drawn into doing that a lot of people do. That is kind of it for Cedric Alexander. Surely he's not going to come out and cut an amazing promo where he's going to resolve to fight harder and get over. It's just he needs all the help he can get, and he didn't get much help on Sunday.
Yeah.
One final thing, and that was meant to be my final thing, but this has just occurred to me now. This whole hello to your mother thing that Styles and Gallows and Anderson are doing, that even WWE's Twitter account has embraced and started tweeting about. Where's this going?
Who's got a mother who could theoretically be on screens? Isn't Becky Lynch's mom considered?
Big E was going after her
Big
for
E
a
was
while.
really going
Linda,
after her.
baby. Linda McMahon.
But they're not that useless. Sometimes they can plant seeds before things actually happen, like telegraphing and foreshadowing and other such literary devices. Who's got a mother? That's the clue.
Well, recently we saw a bit of a forklift accident on SmackDown with old Roman Reigns, didn't we? How about they hire Buff? Bring back the legend.
Before I was
Big Judy.
Just Google if she's still alive.
I should say, while we're talking about Cedric Alexander, speaking of Googling to see if people are still alive, somebody uploaded a clip from about 6 or 7 years ago where he does the lumbar check on Candice LeRae, and it's so brutal. I had to Google to see if Candice LeRae had died that day.
Can you imagine him doing the lumbar check on Judy Bagwell?
I hadn't previously, but I am now.
It would look incredible.
Or our
What if she does not have a... She doesn't have a Wikipedia page, right? However, there is a Twitter account at J Bagwell on a poll. Is this real?
I mean,
6 followers, probably not.
Oh, well.
And again, it was Russo booking it, so that's probably the amount of followers he's going to have on his new Patreon podcast.
And that's all we've got time for today. So thanks to everyone for joining us for this Raw podcast. My pleasure as always. Michael Cedric and, of course, Andy Murray. But before we go, don't forget to subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or whatever get your podcast from for daily wrestling podcasts. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Cedric, where can they get you on Twitter?
At M. Sidgwick.
And Andy?
At Andy H. Murray, wrestler beginning with H. Hakushi. Should have
Well
got
done.
Pushy. There you go.
Yep, that's great.
Jesus Christ.
And I'm Adam Cleary, CLERY. You can get the whole What Culture Wrestling family at What Culture WWE. But in the meantime, we will see you tomorrow. I don't think he's in again. So we have to do all this again for SmackDown.
Young Cooks.
Goodbye.
Look enthusiastic about it.
I am.